Assalamu'alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Islamic friends, do you know that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam died not just because of an ordinary illness, but because of poison that had settled in his body for 4 years? Many of us may only know that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam died in a serious illness, but few know that the disease came from poison given by a Jewish woman in Khaybar. How could this poison survive for years? What is the evidence in the hadith and authentic narrations? And what lessons can we learn from this event? Let's discuss this story with accurate historical details and based on authentic hadiths. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss other stories full of wisdom. Bismillah, let's get started. 1. Background of the Khaybar War. In the 7th year of the Hijrah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Muslim troops faced a strong Jewish stronghold in Khaybar, a fertile region located north of Medina. Khaybar was a very prosperous trade and agricultural center with strong fortifications and a complete arsenal. The population consisted of Jews who previously had close ties with the Jewish tribes in Medina, such as the Bani Nadhir and Bani Qurayza. They were known as the main enemies of Islam because they often conspired with the Quraysh and other enemies of Islam. In fact, before the Khaybar War, they had tried to kill Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in various ways, but always failed. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam set out with 1,600 Muslim troops, he used a very clever strategy. Instead of attacking all the forts at once, he chose to conquer the forts one by one. Several forts were conquered quickly, but there was one fort that was very difficult to penetrate, namely the Qamus fort. This is where the historic moment occurred, where the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Tomorrow I will give this flag to someone who loves Allah and His Messenger, and he is also loved by Allah and His Messenger." Hadith narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. The next day, the flag was given to Ali bin Abi Talib, who managed to knock down the gate of the fort with his strength. After the war was over, the remaining Jews asked for peace, and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam allowed them to live in Khaybar on the condition that they pay taxes to the Islamic government. However, behind this victory, there was a dangerous conspiracy secretly drawn up by a Jewish woman named Zainab bint Harith. 2. Zainab bint Harith's evil plan. Among the Jews who remained in Khaybar after the peace treaty, there was a woman named Zainab bint Harith. She was the wife of Salam bin Mishkam, one of the Jewish leaders who was killed in the war against the Muslims. This defeat made Zainab very vengeful towards the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslim army. She felt that the destruction of her people could not be left alone. After the peace treaty was signed, the Jews seemed to accept their fate. However, secretly, some of them still harbored deep hatred. Zainab was one of them. So, a cunning plan emerged in her mind. If she could not defeat the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the battlefield, she would try to kill him in another way. Zainab knew that killing the Prophet openly was impossible. He had many loyal companions who always looked after him. However, she remembered something. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam really liked the shoulder of the goat. This is the information he got from people who often served him food. This is where his idea came from. Prepare poisoned food. Zainab chose a young goat to be roasted. She mixed a large amount of poison, especially on the shoulder, because she knew the Prophet liked it very much. Use a very deadly poison. In several narrations, it is mentioned that the poison used was a type of poison that worked slowly. The goal was that if the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was affected by it, he would not die immediately, but would experience long suffering. After the preparations were complete, he served the food to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 3. Poisoned meal. The Prophet Muhammad almost died. After the peace treaty, the Jews of Khaybar wanted to show their friendly attitude to the Prophet Muhammad. They wanted to prove that they accepted the treaty and were ready to live side by side with the Muslims. In this atmosphere, Zainab bint Harith came with a friendly face, bringing a special dish, a delicious roast goat. The Prophet Muhammad sat with his companions. The food looked delicious with a tempting aroma. Without suspecting anything, the Prophet Muhammad took a piece of meat from the shoulder and began to chew it. However, before he swallowed it, he suddenly spat it out and said, "This meat speaks to me that it contains poison. This is a prophetic miracle." Meanwhile, Bishr bin al-Bara, one of the companions who also ate from the dish, had swallowed a large piece. Shortly after that, he began to feel the effects of a very strong poison. His face turned pale. He began to feel dizzy and vomit. Within hours, his body weakened and he finally died. Meanwhile, the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who only bit a little and spat it out, was saved from instant death, but the poison still entered his body and began to settle slowly. 4. Zainab's confession and Qisas's punishment. After this incident, the Muslims immediately arrested Zainab bint Harith and brought her before the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He looked at him calmly and asked, "Why are you doing this?" Zainab didn't try to dodge or lie. With great courage, he said, "I want to test you. If you are truly a prophet, then the poison will not kill you. However, if you are just an ordinary king, then we will be free from you." This answer shows that Zainab does not believe in the prophethood of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wanted to see whether the Prophet really had protection from Allah or not. After hearing Zainab's confession, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not immediately punish her. He chose to forgive him as a form of compassion and the noble character of a prophet. However, when Bishr bin al-Bara died, the companions demanded Qis's punishment, equivalent retribution. In Islamic law, if someone kills another person, then he must receive the same punishment. So, finally, Zainab binti Harith was sentenced to death as punishment for the death of Bishr bin al-Bara. 5. Poison that settles in the Prophet's body. Although the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not swallow the meat, the poison that entered his body still had a long-term impact. For years after this incident, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam often experienced pain in his chest and stomach. In a hadith narrated by Abu Dawood, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I still feel pain from the food I ate in Khaybar. Now the time has come for me to feel the severance of my veins due to the poison." Hadith narrated by Abu Dawood, number 4512, considered Hassan by Sheikh Al-Albani. In medical science, there is a type of poison that does not kill immediately, but damages the body's organs slowly. This poison can cause liver and kidney damage. It can also affect the nervous system and blood circulation, so that the sufferer experiences prolonged weakness. The effects only become more severe after several years, as experienced by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the 11th year of the Hijrah, the Prophet's condition worsened. He began experiencing high fever, severe headaches, and extraordinary body weakness. As death drew near, he said, "O Allah, forgive me, have mercy on me, and meet me with Ar-Rafiq al-A'la, Allah Most High." Hadith History, Bukhari, Finally, on Monday, 12 Rabiul Awal, 11 Hijrah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam breathed his last breath in peace. Muslims mourn. Medina was filled with tears and deep sadness. Islamic friends, this is the wisdom of this incident. 1. The patience of the Prophet Muhammad in facing a difficult trial. 2. The miracle of prophethood where the flesh speaks to save him. 3. Death is the decree of Allah. Even though he was poisoned, Allah still gave the messenger of Allah in completing his mission. Hopefully this story will increase our love for the messenger of Allah. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can benefit from this story. See you in the next video. Assalamu'alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before I conclude, please allow me to sincerely apologize if in this presentation there were any words that were inappropriate or unintentional mistakes. As a human, I am certainly not free from errors. May Allah forgive all my shortcomings and mistakes, and I hope that you all can forgive me as well. My hope is that what has been conveyed today can become beneficial knowledge and bring us closer to His pleasure. Thank you for your attention and patience.